Hi, and welcome to Tapped into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox, and I'm the publisher of Tap into Bayonne, Tap into Hoboken, Tap into Jersey City. It's great to be back in the studio. We had this summer off for a bit of a break. We all made it through. Of course, COVID is still raging. Please, if you're not vaccinated, there's plenty of information on our Tap Into sites about where in Hudson County you can go to get the shot. We made it through floods in Jersey City, Bayonne, Hoboken, and across New Jersey. Thankfully, we're getting through that. We're rebuilding. We're going to come out of it stronger than ever. We've gotten kids back in the classrooms, and kids are trying to stay socially distant and masked, and that's as challenging as anything we've gone through in the past 18 months. But all of this is being done to try to fight COVID, especially as the Delta variant continues to make its way through our neighborhoods. But we're here to talk about something else today. We have a very special guest with us, and that's Michael Harper, who's the clerk to the Board of Elections in Hudson County. Michael, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Stephen, always a pleasure,
It's
my
great
man.
to see you again. Before we get into the mechanics of this year's election, which is on November 2nd, or in some ways much earlier than that, as you'll describe, why don't you talk about what the Board of Elections does?
Okay, the Board of Elections is a six-member body appointed by the governor, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, always bipartisan by design. Every county has a Board of Elections. We're responsible for the hiring and training of poll workers, the choosing of polling locations, and the counting of ultimately of all ballots through a canvass.
Okay. So as we get closer to Election Day this year, and again, Tuesday, November 2nd is Election Day.
Yes.
Only in terms of the day that people actually go to the polls and physically vote.
Right.
But in some ways, the election has already started.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, Steve, I'll say the last time we were here, we were together was before last year's November election, which was a very particular, different election due to COVID in particular. It was an all-paper election. Happy, I think a lot of the voters are happy that we're back to in-person voting. In fact, I think the state was so happy to get back to in-person voting, they gave us an additional 9 days of it. So people will be able to vote in person on their voting machine for 9 days prior to Election Day.
And this is new to New Jersey, but certainly not a new concept across the country. South Carolina and many other states have done it.
Many other states do early voting. I think in essence it's a great thing. It's just offering more opportunity for people to get, and the New Jersey system is 9 days, as I just said. That's October 23rd, a Saturday, to October 31st, the Sunday. So you have 2 full weekend days in there of potential in-person voting, and an entire week, 10 o'clock to 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. At voting centers, and I want to concentrate on that for a second because it's different. These are not the traditional neighborhood-based precincts that you would be used to. So you may look at a list of potential voting centers and say, well, the nearest one is still a good hike. These were not meant to replace neighborhood voting centers. There are 10 early voting centers throughout the county. There's 4 in Jersey City due to the size of it. It's basically 40% of our population, of our voting population. So there are 4 in Jersey City and 6 others in other towns. That means in Hudson County, every town does not have one,
right,
which is odd for us. The largest town that doesn't have one is Secaucus. Secaucus, Weehawken, Guttenberg, Harrison, and East Newark do not have early voting centers. But the important part of the reason they are early voting centers is because anyone from Hudson County can go to any one of these 10 locations.
So somebody from Secaucus can take the trip down to Hoboken on Saturday afternoon.
Kearney, Ward D in Jersey City, North Bergen, any of those, anybody could vote in any single location.
So Mike, an important thing that we always talk about with early voting, or has been talked about a lot, is security of the vote. Absolutely. So, you're going in, you're casting your vote on a voting machine, the traditional machine that we're used to seeing. What happens to those votes? That machine is just sitting there for...
Well, an important aspect of early voting in general, and that will affect every voter, it required some new equipment. Both a new poll book, an electronic poll book, as opposed to the old paper that we're also used to. Your poll book in both the early voting situation and on regular precinct-based voting will now be on a sort of an iPad that the poll worker will use to find you. That allows us to find a voter from any location in the county. So that was the important part about that. We are also, as far as early voting goes, using a new machine, a new touchscreen full-face machine by a company called ES&S. That machine allows us to pull up any ballot if you're from anywhere in the county. So that was necessary as compared to the machines that we all know and love that we've used for a good long time, those Dominion machines. That was a paper ballot put on top of a button system. This is fully touchscreen. But the important difference, as far as going back to security, is something that technology and machine experts have wanted for a long time, voting safety security experts. was some sort of paper voting trail on the machine. And this machine does offer you that. You will vote. It's very similar. One of the reasons we chose this machine is it's very similar to the machine we're used to. When you're finished, there will be one more step. When you're finished with your voting, a paper trail, a piece of paper will come up that shows you who you just voted for, giving you the opportunity to look at that and say, yes, that's who I voted for. Then that paper trail will...
Receipt, so to speak.
Not a receipt.
Okay.
I'm always careful about the terminology, just because it's never something that you're going to receive back in hand.
Okay, got it.
But it falls into the machine, and that would be our paper record for anything from an audit to a close election, a recount.
Got it.
We would then count off of those. As I said, this is something, especially last year with a lot of different technology issues came up. This is for people specifically who are worried about that software within a machine not properly reflecting who somebody voted for. I've worked with these machines for 15 years in a hands-on and many years before that in a broader sense. That was never a problem with our machines. The votes were going where they're supposed to go, but the paper trail is an excellent, anything that makes people feel more secure and really, know that their vote is being counted in the proper way is great by us.
Mike, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more about voter security, because I think this is such an important
Absolutely.
issue. And then we're also going to get into some of the other aspects of voting this year, going to the polls and also voting by mail. We'll be right back.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Harper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Panapinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintodevelopment.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hi, welcome back to Tapped into Hudson. I'm Steve Lenox, and I'm the publisher of Tap into Bayonne, Tap into Hoboken, Tap into Jersey City. Before we get back into the conversation with Michael Harper, I want to thank everybody that I met at the All About Downtown Jersey City Street Festival on Saturday. It's always great to get out and meet our readers. This is something we missed so much during COVID when we just couldn't be together. But it was great to be back, and we look forward to seeing you at so many other events coming up this fall in all three cities that we cover. Mike, when we left before the last break, we were talking about voter security. We were. Obviously, coming out of the 2020 election, the integrity of the vote was called into question by our former president and some of his supporters. I think most of what he said went wrong was actually refuted. I think many courts said everything was done the right way. But it is still a very real concern, and I think a very legitimate concern, right? People want to know that when they cast their vote's being cast, it's being cast for the candidate they want it to be cast for, and it's being counted and applied the right way. So you started talking about the machines, and not a paper receipt, you clarified, but they do see a tag. It says who they voted for. It gets down into a machine, down into a box, so to speak, and that becomes your paper trail.
That's our paper trail, yeah. Now, just from there to another method of voting, which I think one of the real lasting effects of the November presidential paper ballot is going to be an increase in vote by mails across the board. You have a ton of first-time voters and even long-time voters, just first-time VBM users, who fill that out and so at their kitchen table, got time to sit and look at it and think about it, throw it in the mail, throw it in one of our drop boxes or secure drop boxes that we have all over the county. And another form of, it was funny to me last year that when things sort of went sideways and then people started doubting the security of a vote by mail. The vote by mail to me and to election officials is sort of your most secure. That's its own paper trail. That's telling you, and I have those things for years we keep after every election. If someone came in and said, you reported 53 to 47 in this district, could we see them? And anybody come sit down and look through those, And the other part is, in the heat of election, sort of rhetoric and battles, it came out like 200,000 extra ballots were brought in at midnight to 2 a.m. Every ballot that comes in is accounted for, both between the U.S. Postal Service or our drop box system. So it's not that, 200,000 extra ballots could ever show up out of nowhere. What shows up, and it's counted. And just speaking for myself, and I know election officials from around the state, I don't know anybody who's willing to, put their job, their pension, their name, and their freedom on the line.
There's very strict penalties, very terse penalties for messing with a paper ballot.
Yes, absolutely.
And we've seen people get in trouble for that in the past.
We have.
Absolutely.
We have. So that, that paper ballot, that vote by mail ballot, I think those are going to increase, every year, the number that we get that way. And now with also the opportunity for someone to come and vote in person early, those 9 days, or on election day, we're really, and it's obviously a great thing, expanding the opportunity to every voter.
And Mike, I think you started to allude to it. There's some people that are concerned about putting their ballot in the box or the post box and actually making its way to where it needs to get to. But you can track your ballot.
You can, to ensure that it's been delivered. Vote, just by way of some deadlines for us to think about. You mentioned the election is November 2nd. October 12th is the registration deadline. And well after that, October 26th or so, I believe, is the final day to apply to receive a vote by mail. All of those things can nowadays especially be gotten online, filled out online. I'll probably give it a time or two again before we go, but HudsonCountyClerk.org is sort of our main website for all. Under that, there'll be an election division tab, and go to that, and it has really everything across the board, to the link to track your ballot, the online forms for voter registration or to request a vote by mail, and it's just sort of a political junkie's paradise, old archives of election returns. But there's a ton of information on there that I ask anybody.
Mike, can a potential voter register to vote online, or does that still have to be done by paper?
They can register online. Unfortunately, it still requires the ability to print, sign, and scan back into the system. So it's not perfect, but it's certainly and again, we could get you the forms. Anybody looking for forms? I'm sure before we're done here today, we'll talk a little bit more about poll worker recruitment and the people I'm going to use to. But any of that, anybody looking for information along those lines could certainly send us an email to boardofelections@hcnj.us. That's Board of Elections, one word, all lowercase, at hcnj.us.
And these are websites that are kept updated regularly, and the email is checked regularly.
Yes.
And you're really doing your best to educate voters. That's why you're here today,
what
right?
We're
to
doing,
let the voters know there's multiple ways to vote. Let's talk right before we finish up this segment here. These boxes, they were brought out in 2020, of course, I think, as a response to COVID and not being able to go into the polling places. How many of them are there around the county?
We have 19 out, I believe. There's one in every ward in Jersey City. There's one basically in front of every municipality's town hall. All of that, the exact address is also available for that HudsonCountyClerk.org site. But all the drop boxes that we had out for the last November's election are out again. Again, you did say people concerned, and I will say from my experience last year receiving about 280,000 paper ballots through the mail, the post office did a hell of a job. The post office was amazing. But that being said, sometimes there's a 3-4 day lag in between. Right. So, I would encourage people to use those drop boxes. We pick them up direct to the Board of Elections every day. A team goes out of Democrats and Democrat and Republican, at least on every team, for bipartisan oversight. And like I said, from there it's very regimented to count those ballots, both physically, how many did we get that day, and then onto the approving those ballots based on signatures up to the counting period.
So your message is to vote and vote early.
Vote early, yeah.
Vote early.
Yeah, get it done.
We're going to take a break, Mike. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about those poll workers.
Excellent, please.
Thank you for joining us at Tapped into Hudson. We'll be right back with Michael Harper, Clerk to the Hudson County Board of Elections.
Introducing the all-new Ford Maverick. A truck for people who do stuff. And people who make stuff. People like Gabrielle Union.
I make this look good, don't I?
Who haul whatever they want to wherever they want. Like wood to build things made of wood with. And friends to get weird with. It's for long trips that the standard hybrid engine with a targeted EPA estimated city fuel economy rating of 40 miles per gallon helps with. That an 8-inch touchscreen connects with. And any trip that this interior makes more comfortable. But We'll let Gabrielle tell you all about it.
Or I could just tell them it's a Ford truck that starts at less than $20,000 MSRP.
Yep, that works too. The all-new Ford Maverick, built to defy expectations.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Hi, and welcome back to Tapped into Hudson. We're talking about election 2021 today. We've got Michael Harper. Michael is the clerk to the Hudson County Board of Elections. Michael, we've talked about voting machines, we've talked about early voting, we've talked about vote by mail, and we've talked about drop boxes. You mentioned poll workers. These are the all-important men and women that work inside the polling places, make sure voting is going smoothly. Where do they come from?
They come from the communities, and we have a lot of people who've been doing it for many years, both for better and for worse, I guess. But, the poll worker community in general is, we have great poll workers in Hudson County. Like I mentioned before, I have a lot of contact with other election officials from around the state. I served my 3 years as president of the State Association of Election Officials. Everybody complains about their poll workers, and we have pretty good ones. Doesn't mean, this June was particularly a trying election. It was the first in-person election in over a year, and the poll worker universe does trend to elderly to a certain extent, and people with other underlying issues. So we had a lot of dropouts, a lot of people who normally work the polls who weren't there for us. We're hoping that's better day to day, so people know both early voting and in-person voting. PPE, poll workers will be required to wear masks. There will be hand sanitizer there, and we will, it'll be everything will be social distance. It's as safe an environment as we can potentially create. So
Mike, those of us that have gone into a polling place, we know the poll workers and we know the work that they do. And it's a long day. I mean, they're probably there 5:30 in the morning till a 16-hour day. Do they get paid to be there?
They do. Poll workers make $200 a day for a regular election day. That was adjusted for the primary due to a lot of counties having a dearth, having a lack of poll workers. And the state put in a one-time $200 bonus. So actually for June, they made $400. Great, happy to, like I said, they work hard, they work a long day. I was happy to see that. Unfortunately, it wasn't done by law. So every election official is still waiting with fingers crossed that we'll get something by way of executive order, at least for some sort of adjustment. Hard asking people to work in June, the lesser election, for $400, and then ask them to come back for the heavy one for $2. But that being said, so a whole new scenario in early voting. Now we are paying those people as well. The early voting hours are Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Just the 2 Sundays, or 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're going to pay those people hourly, and it's based on the hours of a regular election. The $200 divided by the hours, it's about $14.29 an hour, and that will be people will be paid. Part of the early voting law was a bonus for people who come for the poll worker training. And poll worker training this year will be mandatory, obviously, with all the new equipment.
That was going to be my question. There's a lot of new technology being introduced.
They'll get a $30 one-time hit for coming to class this year.
When we think about the poll workers of the old days, I guess, and neither of us are that old, but we think about the old days, they are going through the paper books and scratching off names and making sure the curtain closed and that sort of thing. But with all the technology being introduced and early voting, there's a lot more to it than that.
There is. The equipment that we've chosen, certain amount of it is just the future, and people always fear and get worried about change. The new equipment is very intuitive, very easy to use. I hear that all over the state for people. We got to be careful, our senior citizens. And for a lot of ways, I think that's a cop-out, because senior citizens, especially after COVID and the quarantine time alone, they're using iPads and iPhones and ATMs and everything else that these machines aren't much different than. So I have a much higher view of our senior population, especially our senior poll worker population.
That's great. And Mike, if somebody wants to be a poll worker, where do they go to apply?
Again, that same email, boardofelections@hcnj.us. Send me your interest through there, and I will get you the paperwork. And especially people for early voting, October 23rd to 31st. We are still looking for people. We're still recruiting people, and we will be giving classes up until it begins, and and even probably thereafter. So,
are there any specific skills or qualifications you're looking for, or just the desire to work hard and learn the system?
Hey, this desire to work hard. I think the requirements on the state level are the registered voter, speaks English. Obviously, bilingual is a preference here in Hudson County. A lot of our areas English, Spanish, but of course, we're so diverse. We have many areas that any other language is helpful.
A lot of times, Mike, on election day, thinking about to the old days of us working on campaigns, you think about what used to happen outside polling places with signs up and, us kind of shouldering our way as close as we could get. Do we have to worry about any of that with early voting, or do campaigns know to stay away?
Early voting, I don't see it. And I was just talking to somebody about this earlier today, that I think it's going to lessen even our election day sort of mundane issues like that, like you're within 100 feet or not. Because giving people the option to vote anywhere, and it sort of changes the entire challenger situation. What votes you're going to challenge, what votes you're going to get out there, go for. In the palm cards, the traditional 5 o'clock palm cards, all that stuff will still exist. I thought it meant a lot when we were doing it, but more and more I wonder, like, if people really showing up at the polls not knowing who they're voting for? Yeah,
you're right. This is part of the process that we were ingrained in, and the other party was ingrained in it as well.
Yeah.
Mike, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back to have one more conversation about early voting and vote by mail. We're so glad you've come back to join us at Tapped into Hudson. We'll be right back.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in one of our many high-rise towers. With amenities such as the on-site Newport Path, light rail, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Kohl's, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams and Acme Supermarket are just outside your front door. A health and fitness center, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. Enjoy the New York skyline from our waterfront and various parks. Manhattan is just one pass stop away, or a quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Looking to visit? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. For more information, visit us at newportnj.com. Make lasting memories to cherish forever. It's incredible. It's you, Newport. Live like you want.
Good Friend Self Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer a Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunnelly Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Hi, and welcome back to our final segment at Tapped into Hudson. We've got Michael Harper, the clerk to the Hudson County Board of Elections, and he's talking about the mechanics of Election 2021. Mike, as we said, Election Day is November 2nd, Tuesday, November 2nd. It's coming up quicker than that, though, with the vote-by-mail ballots. They're in the mail now. They've already gone out.
Yeah, some have hit the mail. They'll all be out by the end of this week.
Okay. And Mike, when we talk about early voting and vote by mail, and your job as an election official, and you said you talk to election officials across the state, and I'm sure you're in some sort of touch with election officials across the country. What is the future of voting? What do you see it? How do you see it going?
I mean, it's so distinct state to state, and even county to county, the way we implement things. But obviously, this in-person early voting is a wave of the future. I'm glad we're there in New Jersey. Vote by mails, as I said earlier, are just going to be an increase. There are states that vote entirely by mail. I don't see that any time in the foreseeable future here in New Jersey. We're a very election day based culture. But, and then I'm constantly asked by young people around the county, like, when am I voting on this phone? When's it coming? And, 5 years ago, I shook my head and said, oh, never. But the technology, the truth is there. Eventually, that's going to come. Is it going to come in our lifetimes? Maybe, but I think we'll be older voters.
Not that much older than the young ones.
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned, I don't remember, it was 220,000 vote by mail ballots that you counted last year. And as I said many times, you're the clerk to the Board of Elections, but I know you've got a whole big team around you, and you've mentioned them many times to me in private, anytime we're talking about how the election system works in Hudson County. Who is this team that's around you?
Yeah, in Hudson County, a first-class county of our size, there's actually 3 offices that have their hands in the election process. The county clerk, an elected position, as you know, Junior Maldonado, he's our current county clerk. His elections division is responsible for the layout of the ballot. They get the initial vote by mail requests. They answer them, send the ballots to people. Those ballots come back to me in my office. But there's also another office known as the Superintendent of Elections office. Another gubernatorial appointed position, or Superintendent of Elections, is John Brzezowski. And we're really lucky. As I said, I deal with a lot of counties, and our 3 offices work together seamlessly, which was really, has always been an important thing to me, because the constituents, people just want answers. They don't know who does, particularly who does what. So, we work together to do what we can.
And of course, your bipartisan Board of Commissioners.
Yeah, my 6-member board, 3 Dems, 3 Republicans, again, appointed by the commissioner. I consider myself blessed. 15 years now I've been at this position, and I don't know that we've ever had a partisan divide issue over, we have intelligent discussions and work out, but really everyone's there for the voters of Hudson County. We want to get these.
That's what we need more of in government, of course, Mike. Mike, we got about 90 seconds, so let's wrap it up here. Early voting, how many locations across the county? 10
locations, 5 at their city halls. Jersey City, Hoboken, Hoboken, Bayonne, Kearney, and what's the 5th one?
And if you can't bring it to memory, it's of course on your website. It's
of course on the website. But the other locations are Union City is in front of the old DPW on New York and 27th Street. West New York is going to be in Sunshine Gardens. And Jersey City also has locations at the Moose Hall to the south, the Pershing Field Community Center up in the north, and the Gallo Center in B Ward at Lincoln Park.
Okay, and we'll of course list these on tap into Hoboken, tap into Bayonne, and tap into Jersey City. The vote by mail ballots are hitting the mail, so people should start seeing them in the mailboxes. Your advice would be, as soon as somebody gets their ballot, make their decision, fill out their ballot, put it in a mailbox, put it in a drop box. They can bring it to your office if that's what they're most comfortable doing.
Always, up until Election Day.
And these ballots get to your office, and they're kept in a secure location. Ballots aren't counted until polls close on November 2nd.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Mike, good luck this Election Day. I know you have a lot of challenges facing you.
We'll make it work. We always do.
You made it through a COVID election in 2020. Yeah. You made it through a primary election this year with a lot of challenges. I'm glad to see the new technology coming in. I think we all look forward to it being on our phone and us really not having to do any traveling. With that, we're so glad that you came back to join us at Tap into Hudson. We hope you'll keep reading the news at Tap into Bayonne, Tap into Jersey City, and Tap into Hoboken. We'll see you next week with a very special guest again. Thank you.